On today's video, which is better for deer hunting? A crossbow or a compound vertical bow? Hey there, outdoor YouTubers. It's Dave Knetter from Knetter's Practical Outdoors. Now, hey guys, I do realize that not every area allows crossbow hunting for deer, alright? But more and more areas are allowing crossbows during the normal archery seasons, okay? So if you happen to hunt in one of those areas, okay, and you're thinking about getting into archery hunting for the first time, or maybe you're just thinking about upgrading your archery equipment, you know, which one should you get? A crossbow or a compound vertical bow? I often refer to these standard normal bows as vertical bows, right? Because they're up and down. Crossbows horizontal. So throughout this video you'll hear me referring to a compound bow as a vertical bow. Kind of helps distinguish from the crossbow because a lot of crossbows essentially are compound bows too, right? They have the wheels or the cams, very similar to a bow like this. So a lot of times I do like to refer to these as vertical bows, and then I just call crossbows crossbows. In my home state of Michigan, hunting with a crossbow for deer during the normal archery seasons became legal about 10 years ago. And there was kind of a mixed bag amongst hunters to whether that was a good change or a bad change. Some guys, you know, they really didn't like it. They wanted to, you know, just have it just be the vertical bows, you know, maybe some of the more purist archery hunters. And then, you know, there was some hunters that were, hey, that's just more opportunities for more people to get into archery hunting, and they kind of liked it. Okay, so like I say, there was kind of a mixed bag amongst the hunters that I talked to. So which is better? You know, what are the pros and cons of each one, the crossbow and the vertical bow? Well, I think there is one misconception. People automatically assume that a crossbow is always going to be faster. Okay, well, that's true a lot of the times, but it's not necessarily true. All right, this particular crossbow shoots at 315 feet per second. Okay, and this particular vertical bow shoots at 300 feet per second. So these two are actually pretty close to the same as far as speed goes. All right. Now this all comes down to the equipment that you buy, right? You can get more expensive stuff, more expensive equipment, and it'll be faster. All right. But don't assume just because you have a crossbow that means you're automatically going to be shooting faster than all vertical bows, right? A lot of crossbows are made to shoot over 400 feet per second. A lot of vertical bows you can get up to, you know, 340, 360. So, you know, kind of on average, a crossbow might shoot faster, but it's not necessarily true. You kind of got to look into the equipment that you're going to buy. Now, with a vertical bow, a hunter may have some physical limitations to how much pull they can handle, right? How much pounds of pull they can physically pull back. Generally speaking, the higher pounds of pull, the faster the bow is going to be. So with vertical bows, you may be limited by upper body strength as to how fast of a bow you can shoot. But with a crossbow, oftentimes you are pulling the string back or cocking it with a cocking aid. Either a crank that's mounted somewhere around in here that reaches up and grabs the string and you crank it back, or like in my case, I use a cocking rope. Makes it much easier to pull the string back. Okay? So using a crossbow with a cocking aid allows most hunters, regardless of upper body strength, to shoot higher poundage, faster shooting archery equipment. Another thing about crossbows is they are oftentimes considered to be more accurate than a vertical bow. Well, I would say there are a lot of things about a crossbow that makes them easier to be more accurate than a vertical bow. And I'll kind of explain. Because you know, it really does kind of come down to the shooter, right? There's all kinds of people shooting vertical bows that are way better shots than I am with my crossbow. But there are a lot of things about a crossbow that do make it easier to shoot more accurately than you would a vertical bow. Probably first and foremost is you can shoot a crossbow from a resting position, right? You can shoot this off of a rest. And this includes hunting too. You know, that might be incorporating a stick, just like, you know, you would with a rifle, you know, a shooting stick. Or if you're hunting in a blind, you can incorporate some kind of a little bench that you can shoot off of. So that does allow you to shoot this crossbow archery equipment much more accurately. But I will say one thing, if you're going to shoot a crossbow from a rest, be very aware that this string is going to come flying forward, these limbs are going to come flying forward. So just kind of keep that in mind, right? When you're shooting off a rest, also keep in mind, keep this hand in a good safe place. Sometimes it's a little tempting to put this crossbow on a rest and let this hand wander around a little bit because you no longer have to hold it down here, and you might kind of get in these danger areas with the string or even the limbs. So just be aware, if you do shoot from a rest, the string and the limbs do kind of come flying forward, and don't let anything about your rest be in the way, and don't let your hand get in the way. But everything else being equal, if you can shoot from a resting position, you are just going to shoot more accurately. You know, another thing with vertical bows is you have to be very conscious of shooting consistently. You know, shooting it the same way every time. Okay, and I'll kind of explain what I mean. When you go to pull the bow back, right, you pull it back and you settle into your nice happy anchor point, okay? And here I am, I've got my release right in my common anchor point that I always use, and you know, I've got my arm extended like I always would. But you know, if you're not conscious about where that is, it's really easy. Like, I can pull it just a hair back further, or I can be just a hair forward a little bit, depending on how far my chest is open, how far my chest is closed, if I'm leaning down, up, whatever. It's very easy to not shoot a vertical bow exactly the same every time. Okay? Anybody that shot them kind of knows what I'm talking about. You know, you get that feel, you get that back in that anchor point, you get your arm extended, you get that nice comfortable spot, and you try to be there every time. But, you know, if you're in a tree stand and now you're shooting down, you're shooting at a little bit of a different angle, all these things can actually affect that draw length that you've actually got it pulled back. It's very easy to be a hair less, even a hair more, and that will affect your shot. Now, of course, with a crossbow, this gets pulled back, the string gets locked into the trigger mechanism, and that distance is really going to be consistently the same every shot. Now, as you can see, I do like to use a good mechanical release. This does help the release of the bowstring be a lot more consistent than, say, if you were using fingers, right? That string rolling off the ends of your fingers, you know, sometimes that can change just a little bit here or there. That can affect the shot a little bit. Now, some archery purists, they think that's the only way to hunt. You shouldn't be using a mechanical release. You shouldn't be using sights. You know, you maybe shouldn't even have cams or wheels or anything like that. That's kind of a different subject. But when comparing a modern crossbow with kind of a modern compound vertical bow, you know, incorporating the mechanical release does give you a little bit better, a little bit more consistent shot. You know, another thing that a lot of people say is when you hunt with a crossbow, you can shoot at deer further away than you could if you were hunting with a vertical bow. And, you know, I would kind of discourage that train of thought. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't shoot at deer further away. Of course, if you're shooting much more accurately with a crossbow than you do a vertical bow, maybe you can expand, your range a little bit to where you can shoot deer. But understand that the equipment, just because it's a crossbow, again, this is back to that speed, it might not be a more lethal weapon just because it's a crossbow. The crossbow could be slower than the vertical bow. You could have less impact in the bolt or arrow when it reaches the deer. That sort of thing. So just kind of keep that in mind. I did do a whole video, on things to consider when you're trying to decide how far of a shot you're going to take on a deer with a crossbow. And I'll leave a link below in the description to go to that video. I get in a lot more detail dealing with accuracy and speed and distance and time and all those sorts of things. But, just overall, I wouldn't necessarily say you should be shooting at deer further away just because you're hunting with a crossbow. It really comes down to the hunter, really comes down to the equipment, so just kind of keep those things in mind, and you might want to check out that other video I talked about. So at this point, I think you guys can kind of tell, it's my personal belief that the crossbow is a much more efficient weapon than the vertical bow. It's just so much easier to shoot a crossbow real accurate than a vertical bow, for the reasons I mentioned before. And for some hunters, you just won't have those physical limitations holding you back from shooting really fast archery equipment if you're using a crossbow. But let's just put like speed and accuracy and all that stuff behind for a minute. And one thing that really stands out to me as far as the actual hunting with a crossbow or a vertical bow is getting that shot off when you want, okay? And you vertical bow hunters, you know where I'm going with this, right? You're up in your stand or you're in your ground blind, and oh, there's a deer that I'd like to harvest, here it comes, and you decide to pull back, and it's like, oh, it's not broadside. And you're waiting, or it's standing behind a tree. You're waiting, and pretty quick after a while, you maybe better let up, right? Oh, it's broadside. You start to pull back. And two things happen. One is there's a lot of movement for you to pull that bow back. You're giving that deer little opportunities to catch movement and kind of bust you, right? That's one thing. And you guys that vertical bow hunt, I'm sure you've all experienced that. The other thing is, if you are hunting with a crossbow, in that same situation, oh, there's a deer I'd like to harvest. There it is. You're waiting. Oh, it's broadside. Thunk! And you just pull the trigger and you're on it, right? As soon as that deer gives you that shot, you can take it. Sometimes with the vertical bow, you might pull back and be ready, but it might not step out from behind that tree for a while. Or it's broadside, you pull back, now it's not broadside. So that's one of probably the biggest advantages that I saw just from a hunting standpoint is once you pull that crossbow up and you're eyeing up that deer, as soon as it gives you that shot, you can pull the trigger and get that shot off. Another big advantage to the crossbows that just kind of affected me personally is a crossbow is much more interchangeable with other hunters, okay? I have two sons. One of them is left-handed. They're 6 years apart. They're different sizes, right? So if I kind of had to outfit them all with vertical bows, that could maybe put me in the poorhouse, right? But over the years, we've been able to share this crossbow, without issue. You sight the thing in, I can just hand it to one of my sons or my wife, same thing, and it's sighted in for them, right? Between my wife and my sons, you've got different draw lengths. Like I said, they're different sizes. One of them's left-handed. Crossbow's great. It fits us all. We can all shoot it. We can all hunt with it. We can all kind of share it. And, and I've said this before, right? This is Knetter's practical outdoors. This isn't, Knetter's darting outdoors where, some company's sending me all these free bows or anything. It's just not how it works. Now, having said all that, I personally do still hunt sometimes with the vertical bow, okay? And I'll kind of explain that. Like I told you earlier, in my home state of Michigan, they do allow the use of crossbows for hunting deer during the normal archery seasons. But there is one caveat to that, okay? State of Michigan, you have an early archery season, you have your rifle season, and then you have a late archery season. And you are allowed to use a crossbow in both the early and the late archery season for the whole state of Michigan, except the Upper Peninsula, which happens to be where I live and hunt. I live in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. That's where I live. That's where I hunt. Okay? You cannot use a crossbow in Upper Michigan, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, during the late season archery. That's when I have to go back to the vertical bow and use a vertical bow for hunting. I've heard some different reasons why. Something to do with the deer yarding up in the winter. They didn't want people using crossbows in deer yards. I don't fully understand it. To me, if you have one tag to shoot a deer, I don't know why that matters. Or if you have two tags, I just don't understand why that matters. But anyways, so for me, I'm probably going to be always using the crossbow in the early archery season. And then, of course, I have to switch over to the vertical bow for the late archery season. All right. So, and I do enjoy both. And personally, when I'm just shooting for fun, I'd rather shoot a vertical bow. You know, you don't have to cock it. It's just easier to grab your arrows and go and shoot. And I probably do enjoy shooting a vertical bow more. But that's kind of neither here nor there. I do like the efficiency that the crossbow brings. And like I said, especially that as soon as you get a shot, you can pull the trigger and get that shot off. You don't have that large amount of movement, you know, trying to get set and having to let it down and wait for the shot, that sort of thing. That, to me, that is one huge advantage that the crossbow has. But anyways, guys, it was kind of fun talking about all this stuff with you guys, and you know, and I hope that helps you out if you're trying to make a decision between one or the other. And also, guys, remember to hunt, fish, laugh, repeat. This is Dave Knetter from Knetter's Practical Outdoors. Hey, thanks for watching and God bless.